Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the special business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, November 9th. Atsqualin, Queesaluknuk, Flat Squamish, Okameo. We are meeting today on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Council motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor French. Any opposed? Motion carries. One item on our open agenda this afternoon, and that is the Central Estuary Restoration Project Water Sustainability Act referral and license letter. And so I'm turning it over to our Director of Engineering, Mr. Wickham.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I am here to talk about the Central Estuary Restoration Project. We did have a delegation come in from the CERP project team about a month ago to give an update to Council. So I'm here to talk about the district's involvement and our requirement for a referral and a letter to Flinrod. Just quick update and backgrounder for people listening who weren't at the October meeting. This is the CERP project. Is a project to improve juvenile salmon survival, especially Chinook salmon, but other species as well in the Squamish estuary. In particular, increase access to the Crescent Slough for fingerlings, which is the central estuary. So there have been meetings going on for over 4 years now, two major capital projects took place, and Culvert 3 in 2019 and Culvert 4. These are large box culverts that were installed through the road. The CERP team consists of the Squamish River Watershed Society, Squamish Nation, and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. So this winter, the CERP team is proposing to do a significant capital works on the spit, have put in a number of applications, as we'll see. But just to get a sort of an overview of where we're looking at, for those of you who are familiar with the area, there's, as you drive down the road, you come to an area that's kind of like a jetty that goes out to a wider area where the wind sports are. And black, you can see the turnaround area, which is the extent of where you can drive today. That turnaround area is slated to remain, and the upstream end of that would be armored with a 3-to-1 slope, large stone armoring for resistance to erosion. Thank you. Sorry about that. And then the area north of there, about 300 meters north of there, as you can see in the bottom. Picture there would be taken down to create a weir structure that would be dry at low tide, but the vast majority of the time would have water flowing over it. The weir is actually made up of large stones that already exist. The way that the spit was built was to drop large stones along the area and then put gravel and fill on top of it. So they're going to take it down to those large stones. And on the right side here, we can also see outlined in red our license area. So coincidentally, the capital works more or less coincide with the portion of the road that is part of the license that the district holds with the province. So as a result of that, the province is asking us for some feedback. So before we get to that, just to talk a little bit about how the district has been involved in the project. We are co-facilitating with the nation a community vision committee. Which is really looking at, the point of the committee is really looking at what is a short-term and long-term access to what will become an island. So in the short term, starting next summer, if the project is successful and is permitted, then there will only be boat access out to the island. And so we've been working with facilitating the conversation between Wind Sports, Tourism Squamish, terminals, the CERP team, in various government agencies on what that would look like. The SERP team have made various changes to their design to allow improved boat access to the island, for example. And those conversations are ongoing. There's also a larger conversation about what could future projects be that might give easier access than boat access. And so there's obviously been talk about access from Third Avenue, access out from the Yellow Gate, and other more creative ideas. And so that's an ongoing process. In addition, the district staff attend as members of the technical committee, which is more focused on the impact to terminals, and especially with navigation, sedimentation, woody debris. And so that's been ongoing since May of this year. And the navigation study is complete. Sedimentation report has just been completed and submitted for peer review. And the woody debris study is ongoing and I believe imminent. So the SERP team will need a number of permits. Transport Canada Navigable Waters Act is one of the key ones, and that's really where this navigation study, sedimentation, and woody debris is focusing on the Transport Canada permitting process. There's also Wildlife Act approval, a Water Sustainability Act approval, and also permission from FLNRO because it's Crown land. And so the district comes in on these last two items. We've been asked for a referral. We are a 10-year holder downstream of the works, and so we and terminals have both been asked to comment on the Water Sustainability Act approval. It is sort of an interesting thing in talking to FLNRO. It's a little bit of it's an unusual project. And so they felt that the Water Sustainability Act Section 11 was the most appropriate vehicle for this. But they are interested in all of our interests as downstream tenure holders. And Terminals also has received a referral. We're also being asked because we have a license, which is a license is kind of like a lease, but it's not exclusive use. So we do have a license for that spit area, and then we sub license to the wind sports. So we've also been asked for input on that. Timing wise, there's certainly a time crunch. SERP team have told us that they do have some considerable portion of their funding which expires this fiscal year, this federal fiscal year, so at the end of March. There's also a fish windows which go to the end of March, and sometime in March. Squamish Nation staff have also indicated that this is an important reconciliation project for the nation. They're spending a lot of time on this, as well as in co-facilitating the Vision Committee, and as team members of the SERP project. This is very important to them. And our referral is due by the 18th of November, although we could ask for extensions if we desire. So first up is the Water Sustainability Act referral. I've just put a screen grab of what the main guts of the referral looks like. So it's not too complex, but and as I said, Terminals also has a WSA referral. The district can choose to speak to really anything that we consider to be our interests in the area, including recreation access, terminals, or any other issue. And we can see there's a number of check boxes there, including no objection, no objection, but with conditions, or recommend refusal of the project. In addition, there's a license letter. So this is a letter that's been requested by the land office, just indicating that we don't have an issue with somebody tearing up our license area, basically. And so they've also asked if we would have any conditions. Staff would propose that we place conditions on public access, and especially starting in May, which is well past the fish window and gives some time to clean up and shouldn't have an impact on the project, but is obviously very important to the wind sports and other users. And so that would be for parking, turnaround, and access through what would be the construction area. So there is a desire for, and it's not part of this application, there is a desire from the CERT team to do continued construction in the next season, and that's they've been very open about that. And the idea is that they do a phase one, the first 300 meters this winter season, and next winter season, after studying the effect, would hopefully be able to do a further 300 to 600 meters. I believe they're saying 650 meters. And so as a result of that, which would require new permits and everything, we'd be back here some point next year. The issue is during that hiatus period, just to make sure that the area is cleaned up and safe for people to access down to get on a boat to get across to do some wind sports at the new island. In the staff recommendation, it's intentionally a little bit vague about what exactly parking and a turnaround looks like. We don't want to dictate too strongly to the CERT team what that might look like. We want to make sure it's adequate for access, but that would be up to detailed design. I should also say there's a point in the letter to Flynn Rowe indicating that we don't have the intention, the district does not intend to maintain the weir. The district does maintain the road surface at this point in time, and we're well suited for that work. So staff just felt that it was important to be clear that maintenance wouldn't extend to areas below the high tide line. And so if there are any questions from council.
Thanks, Mr. Wickham. Councilor Race.
Thank you. So I just, with the recommendation, first of all, I guess my first question is that the recommendation that we have from the report appears to be the alternate recommendation. Am I misreading that? Is there another recommendation?
I'm not sure I understand. The recommendation here on the screen is, I think the recommendation from the report. I believe there were alternate recommendations that council could choose to make a statement regarding terminals, and also could choose to postpone until the impact on the terminals was more understood in the coming weeks with the peer review process. But I believe this is the recommendation from the report.
I'm looking at page 8 of the report in the paper copy, and alternatives to staff recommendation. And one of them is respecting the terminals, but the other one is or, and then I look at it and it looks like exactly the same text. And so I was wondering if there was another main recommendation out there, if one of them is in the wrong place, or I just didn't know.
The second bullet in that alternate recommendation is an addition. This one just has one bullet point, the staff recommendation.
I see. Okay, now I've got it. Thank you. So my question is, where might this turnaround in the condition, the new access, where would that be? Is that at the yellow gate or is that at the end of construction? And in line with that, when I went into the Lavalin report and I received an email from a member of the community, there is a scenario 2 talked about, which is removal of the spit back right up to this, I think it's a southern culvert. And is that still a possibility? I mean, I assume somebody asked Lavalin to do some work on that. And if so, does it make any sense to do any other improvements before that happens? Because presumably that would just get torn up if it did go that far back. So I'm just curious where the turnaround and so forth that we're talking about in the motion might be, and would it be after the 300 meters or the additional 900 meters, or is scenario 2 anywhere on the horizon so that it shouldn't even be down there?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, those are important questions. So the final design of the area hasn't been finalized, and we're still talking about. I think that sort of through the vision committee nailed down-ish the island, what the boat access on the island would look like, et cetera. There's still some ongoing discussions about what the land side would look like. To be honest, I was intentionally somewhat vague in the wording when of the proposed recommendation as far as turnaround goes, because it's not finalized. It would be great if it happens to be that there is some room for a small car turnaround, kind of at the south end of the spit, at the very south end. It's likely that won't be possible, and that the turnaround would need to be essentially where it is now at the trailhead in the Yellow Gate. There is actually a widened area there. It's my understanding that during construction, that would be where trucks would be turning around anyway. So it would just simply be a matter of keeping that area. So the idea would be the trucks would turn around in that area, then back down the spit, get filled, and then go forward. The intention would simply be to keep that area open. I don't think there's a need for or an intent for an elaborate parking facility to be built, or some elaborate turnaround. Just parking along the side of the road, and making sure that they, during the cleanup of the construction activities, that space is left so that people can park there and then walk their way down to access boats. As you say, if the SERP team is successful and in the next phase, then that area, that next 600 meters, would potentially come out. And then I think there'd still be the requirement for parking and turnaround, probably still at the Yellow Gate. There's no intention at this point from the SERP team to go beyond the Yellow Gate, give or take. You also asked about the next phase that I think is in one of the early spring reports. It goes all the way up to the culverts. At this time, this has been this point of discussion during the vision committee meetings. At this time, the SERP team and DFO have indicated that although it was studied, there's no current project and no current proposal and no current funding for anything like that. I don't think anybody necessarily wants to take it off the table, but it's not something that's currently being contemplated by the SERP team.
And so so it sounds like then nothing would really be done along the lines of the motion until the second 900 meters is taken out, or the next 900 meters is taken out. And that's where, if there was going to be an end of the spit construction, that's where it would happen. And is that the place that is intended to then provide access to boats that might go back and forth to the island?
Just for clarity, it's 300 meters now, 600 meters.
Yeah, through the chair, the intention is that after the first 300 meters, there would be a place for people to drive out, park their cars, and walk down to a boat that would be accessing, able to access the end of the spit. That there wouldn't be a situation where construction equipment, stockpiles, et cetera, would be left to in a way that would block safe access for that. So this recommendation is only speaking to what it would look like after the first 300 meters, because the WSA application only speaks to that first 300 meters. There is no application at this time to do an extra 600 meters, although that is the hope of the CERP team, that they would be in a position to apply for a further WSA application in the not too distant future.
And then did I just hear you say that so that point at the end of the 300 meters, after the 300 meters is removed, the southerly point of the spit at that point is already widened, and that's already sufficient for truck turnaround? I personally don't recall that, but I'm not really positive about that.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, sorry.
we'll go ahead.
Sorry, through the chair. The truck turnaround would be just north of the yellow gate. And so that would probably be also the car turnaround. It is possible that the southern terminus of the spit may have some area there, just because they're armoring that with a 3-to-1 slope, et cetera, on that area. So that's been something that's been tossed around. But the resolution would simply ask that there is a place to turn vehicles around. I think at the yellow gate would be sufficient for that. People can walk the 600 meters down to get on the boat, or they can try to do a 3-corner turn on the spit itself.
Other questions? I've got Councillor Pettengill, then French, then Anderson.
So 2 questions. The first one, what is adequate parking?
Through the chair, excellent question. I don't have the answer to that. I think we'd have to work through the vision committee on that one. But it's not unusual to have upwards of 100 cars there. The parking would simply be because we don't want to clear out any new area in the WSA. The road itself is carved out, so there would need to be just room along the side of the road to be able to park as far back as you need to go.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just wondering if staff can comment on why there's a choice to make this, to propose this as a condition as opposed to a preference. And my reason for asking that is, I've seen good collaboration with Squamish Nation on this project and the Vision Committee. The nation has identified this as an important reconciliation project. And I guess I worry a little bit that asking the province to make this a condition as opposed to expressing our preference might actually undermine the cooperation and the progress we've made. And I wonder if stating this as a preference would actually have a more desirable outcome.
Sorry, can I ask, are you specifically as far as relationship with Squamish Nation goes? Is that what I understand the question to be?
Yeah, so I guess I'm and trying to avoid getting into government topics, but have we had conversations at at a staff level or interactions that make us comfortable? I guess that going with the condition rather than a preference in our expression makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I obviously can't speak for Squamish Nation. I have worked very closely with Squamish Nation staff on the Vision Committee and am in frequent conversation with them. And Squamish Nation staff did give feedback on the RTC after it was published. Obviously, there's absolutely no desire on their part to see any delay to the project or any onerous requirements put on the project. I don't feel that this would delay or put any onerous requirements on the project. And I think that the nation staff anyway would be very comfortable with this condition. The reason for the condition is that in vision committee meetings, it was brought up that there was a possibility that there may not be access through the area through the wind sports season. I think that was some time ago now, and there have been many discussions since. Squamish Nation came out or the Squamish Nation staff came out in favor of maintaining access through this area. They don't want to have access by boat through Mamcombe Channel any more than anybody else does. I think it's important to everybody that we not have all of these cars trying to park downtown and then motorboat back and forth through the channel. So for various reasons. They were in support of maintaining access through the construction, the hiatus construction site through the area as well, so that during the wind sports season, people could access it directly.
Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor. The report to council includes a draft Central Estuary Restoration Project report. And I'm wondering, has that draft report in the days since the agenda was released moved from draft status to a final report?
Through the chair, the report included the entire application package and referral package as was provided to staff by the province. And I'm not aware of any changes to that package. I've not been made aware of any changes to that package.
Councillor Anderson.
Just to follow up on Councillor French's question, I did see reference to a pending Squamish River Watershed Society Communications Plan report, and that's referenced in their environmental management plan. I wanted to ask about some of the research that's pending, and I'll just here highlight briefly what I find in the recommendations for the two SNC Levelland reports, respectively. In 2020, the training berm realignment and wave impact assessment refers to desired look into increased overtopping of the district's drainage system, further look at hydrodynamics and sediment transfer models, and another alternate approach to wave modeling. The 2021 SNC Levelland report on the training burn removal phase 2 refers to, again, further work on sediment transport analysis. And as you've already alluded to, Mr. Wickham, the desire for further optimization of removals in a phasing approach, as you have referred to. So my question is, Mr. Wickham, when you referred in your slides to a sedimentation study is now out or about to be out for peer review, does that satisfy the studies that are recommended to be pursued in the two SNC Levelland reports? The sediment transport is referred to in both of these reports, further work on that. Could you explain where we are at in that desired research for the past 2 years of these reports' recommendations?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, sedimentation study, as you say, was outstanding. I should say, just because you mentioned the wave overtopping, that was a district request, and we did review that. There's a very minimal change in projected wave overtopping of our storm and flood infrastructure. And so district staff indicated to the SERP team that they were satisfied and no further studies were required on that aspect. As far as sedimentation goes, that was identified as by the technical committee as one of the significant outstanding items, along with woody debris. And a sedimentation report has been submitted as of yesterday and is under peer review now. If that report is determined by the peer review process, is basically Terminals has hired engineers, and the SERP team have hired engineers, and they're all getting along well together and reviewing each other's work. So once it goes through that process, and then also to Transport Canada, then that will be satisfied from that SNC report.
Thank you.
Councillor Herford.
Thank you. With the turnaround area to be positioned north of the yellow gate where the space allows already, so it doesn't require new construction, would that mean that a yellow gate, a gate of any color, would need to be put at that turnaround zone to stop people from kind of going out there and having to do a precarious 3 to however many point turnaround on the exposed? I'm just trying to understand, and for the public to understand what will be after this phase, what will be physically left there, and then what the access to that would be under what we're discussing at this point today.
Through the chair, that's a great question. I don't think we know yet. I think that that'll need to be. I saw the design for the southern tip of the spit for the first time quite recently. How much of a turnaround can be put there? If it's not much, and if you've got to kind of do a small car 3-point, 8-point turn, then yeah, it may be that it's safest just to close the yellow gate and make it pedestrian only at that point. I'm not sure. It hasn't been determined.
And that's fair. There's a lot of variable. I understand there's a lot of variables here. When would that particular variable, do you think, at what point in the process could we expect to know that piece?
Through the chair, I'm hoping in the coming weeks. Our next vision committee meeting, which hasn't been set yet, we're waiting for the final drawings to come out, would be hopefully in the coming weeks, and that would be one of the topics that we would need to discuss. That and boat access from the south end.
Okay, thank you. Also in the recommendation, it alludes to wind sport season, and if I'm not a wind sport person, besides noticing that they're out there in the summertime, generally, would it not be? Was there a reason that some sort of date time frame wasn't put on that captured in the motion, or is in subsequent documentation enough? I'm just
through the chair. That's a great point. I'm just trying not to be too wordy in the resolution. I suppose it is specified in the letter as May on, but that's a good point. In it, the motion can be amended.
Councillor Race, did you have a follow-up?
Thank you. So I guess where I'm coming from is I'm trying to figure out and trying to visualize this being made pedestrian friendly to access the island and what infrastructure might be needed for that. And so you stated that the turnaround area would probably not have to be expanded because we don't want to go and more or less pave part of the wildlife management area. And we wouldn't be increasing the remaining spit to widen that for any reason, for more or less the same reasons. So now we have people walking down from somewhere above the yellow gate down to the end of the beginning of the excavation, to get into presumably a Zodiac or something like that, to go across that 300 meters to the island. And for pedestrians to do that, there's going to be, I'm assuming, some riprap or something like that. We're talking about small boats coming in to load people. We're also talking about doing this at a time when there's significant onshore winds blowing the boats onto the wind, as well as what the Lavalin study tells us is that's one of the areas of most waves when you get the wind blowing against the current in the river. So it's not a mill pond by any reason. And I'm just wondering what infrastructure might be needed to make that point safe for people to wander down to boats and boats to come in and pick them up and take them across. And that by itself could be a significant structure, because I don't think we could use the big rocks and whatever might be normally used for armoring. We'd have to get down to something like a gravel consistency at some point, and more of a ramp, and maybe on the east side as opposed to the west side where the river is. And so there's a number of considerations around that, and who might have to be responsible for that? Is that to be left to the CERC group? Is it the province? Is it us? How would that come together?
Through the chair, this is exactly the conversations that we have at the Vision Committee meetings, and I can speak to what has been agreed on the island, which is that the 3-to-1 slope sort of bulged out a little bit on the riverside to create an eddy for the boat to come in facing upstream. Because as you say, not only do we have the wind and the waves, we also have the river current. And the commitment by the SERP team was to make that area of the 3-to-1 slope a walkable area, although it'll have to be large stones to basically place them in a way that it's a walkable area. I expect it would be similar. Hasn't been agreed on the other side, other than the SERP team has committed to working with the Vision Committee to make it as workable as possible. It would probably need to be on the riverside because it's shallow on the other side, and so the wind sports very much wants an all tide access, and so it would probably be on the riverside. And yes, it will be challenging. It may also the watercraft that's chosen by the Wind Sports Society will also affect this. If they have a landing craft, that's an easier thing than if they've got they've got a small tinny with a 15 horse on it. So we'll see how that shakes out.
And can you speak to whose budget this might come out of? Is this somebody taking on responsibility for this, or are we suggesting somebody take on responsibility for
it? Through the chair, the SERP team has volunteered to amend their design in sort of simple and affordable ways. They've already got the big yellow machines out there and the riprap and all that sort of thing. If they just need to place things in a different way, or make moderate changes, they've volunteered to do that. Anything else, such as the boat, if there was a floating dock or something like that, that would be Wind Sports would be paying for whatever infrastructure they require or desire.
Mr. Wickham, I know this is a little bit of a different project because there's so many different jurisdictions involved, but how do we capture the discussions from what mechanism we're using to capture the discussions from the Vision Committee and get agreement with the SERP team about that sort of within budget, move the pieces where they need to be while the big machines are out there? How are we capturing that?
That's a great question. SERP team does sit on the vision committee, and when we've been looking at these smaller areas, we've had sort of a more focused subcommittee of basically just the wind sports, the facilitators, and the SERP team with their engineer, looking at what this would look like, and it's been captured on basically emails and drawings going back and forth and that sort of thing. Could probably be better at minuting.
Just, I know in our own projects, we always include a contingency, and then things change once you get into the ground and suddenly things are more expensive. We've seen that a lot of times. And so I'm just wondering how we protect these conversations into actual construction.
At this time, I would say it's only through verbal agreement. We don't have any sort of contractual item. It could be placed in a, that is one area that the permission letter or a condition could be placed, but by council, if council wanted more assurance, or we could capture it in a in some sort of signed document at the end of the day. It's an excellent point.
And then your report mentions that, and the letter to Flinro on the license mentions that we don't want any responsibility for the weir structure below the high water line. What about the island? What are we saying specifically about who's taking responsibility for that, since we no longer have a road connection there?
That's an excellent point as well. We wouldn't be in a position to do maintenance on the island itself. Wind Sports traditionally has done maintenance that's required there as part of their sublicense. And they are planning to stockpile first of all, to do as much work as they can now. I believe they're at work as we speak, bolstering some areas of the island, stockpiling materials. And they've worked with the SERP team to agree on, for example, they want to put, they believe they have one shipping container out there now. They want to place another. They're working with the SERP team as far as placement goes, so they don't get in the SERP team's way, and then SERP team will move it over after construction, etc. So that's really on the wind sports team.
Is that something we should maybe refer to in our license letter back to the province? Is that further conversations about that island? If we have a big storm and part of the island erodes, is that really our responsibility to fix it, or we use the stockpile material that's out there and it's wind sports to pay for that? And I think we should be clear about that going forward.
Thank you. Yes, we certainly could add that to the letter. I think that's an excellent point.
Council, any other questions? So I think I heard one recommendation maybe from council to alter the motion slightly to include the date there. It is in the letter on the license. Councillor Anderson.
Mayor Elliott, I would like to move the alternate recommendation for one of them. I suggest I'd be pleased to include in a suggested motion to include the license agreement letter just referred to, but also that we include the clause referring to Squamish terminals. And I'd be happy to speak to that if there would be a seconder. So I would be prepared to move the second alternate motion found on page 6 of our report to council, include a reference to a letter to the province regarding island maintenance in relation to our license agreement in the first clause, but also refer to Squamish terminals in the additional third clause or second bullet point, as it's here in the alternate resolution.
Maybe Councillor Anderson, we can deal with the Flynn Road license letter separately so that your motion is not combined.
That would be fine. So are you suggesting, Mayor Elliott, that that recommendation simply be recorded by staff as our comments to be considered here or and not included in a resolution?
No, I just want to do them separately.
That's fine. Then two different resolutions. Then I would then be prepared to move the alternate resolution with two clauses. First one, as per the original staff recommendation, safe unimpeded access to the new end of the spit. And the second clause or bullet point, the project should demonstrate no impact to the viability of Squamish Terminal's second berth. This includes deleterious impacts to navigation, sedimentation, or woody debris.
Is there a seconder? Councillor French, you're seconding. Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I in speaking in favor of this approach, I think that there are several items of identified research needs. They appear in both of the SNC Lavalin reports delivered over the past year. We understand that a sedimentation study has been offered for peer review, and that's undergoing now. These technical studies mainly affect Squamish Terminal's interests. I think that I'd also like to refer to the district OCP policy on the spit removal, which I had hoped to see under the policy implications section of the report to council, and I'll read it out. It's section 14.6D of the OCP as follows. Consider changes to the training berm west of Squamish terminals, such as berm extension, access realignment, or clear span bridge installation that balance and enhance environmental, recreational, and industrial values and uses. Utilize the project review process outlined in the Squamish Estuary Management Plan as appropriate. So that's what we have as policy in the OCP, and I think that the alternate resolution, including Squamish terminals, is a good fit with that policy. That policy has not been discussed. In fact, none regarding or that OCP item and its reference to SEMPA has not been discussed by this council. So I think that unless we were to have discussed it and addressed it, I think that we should take that seriously. It explicitly identifies Squamish terminals as a stakeholder. And we, of course, do recognize them as a stakeholder in various ways, not least as a core and enabling sector, prime actor in our transportation sector.
Councillor French, then Councillor Race.
Thanks, Mayor. From the Central Estuary Restoration Project draft report dated September 2021, I note that the dates referenced start at October 15th. Here we are today, November 9th, with the report still in draft form, outlining work that it's supposed to be underway, despite the fact that the report guiding the project seems to be incomplete to me. So the draft report has some glaring omissions. On page 12, we see that the roles and responsibilities of DFO is yet to be determined. On page 13, there's a table with a text placeholder that reads, "Get something in writing from DFO." The marine works section on page 20 needs to be edited. There's information missing in the archaeological resources section, and the drawings or diagrams of the laydown and staging areas haven't been inserted in section 11.1 on page 15. There's one sentence in the report that really jumps out at me. Quote, "The project team, Squamish River Watershed Society, Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Squamish Nation, have met regularly with provincial staff from the Ministry of Forests, Lands, Natural Resources Operations and Rural Development and District of Squamish staff and council to ensure their input included," end quote. So it looks like there's a typo. It's probably supposed to read "to ensure their input is included." I don't agree with this sentence. This council has only had one meeting with the project team. Dating back to October 2019, this group of council members has had one meeting with the project team, and that was on October 12th, about a month ago. This, in my mind, hardly qualifies as meeting regularly with council. I feel like there's a lack of integrity that concerns me. The planning work is incomplete. Has me wondering, are other corners being cut? Now, I support salmon habitat restoration, so broadly I support the project and I support the motion.
Councillor Race.
Thank you. I would like to propose an amendment. And the amendment would be to delete the sentence, "This includes adequate parking and a turnaround area to be determined in detailed design." If it's seconded, I'll speak to that.
Seconded by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. The thing that concerns me, or the area of concern for me, is what new additional work might be done or have to be done to comply with that. And so we've heard from staff that the turnaround area that's referred to could be the existing turnaround area north of the Yellow Gate. Adequate parking, we've heard, is what might be available in that area or in the part of the spit that might be left for the time being. So the concern for me is the access down at the end of the spit where the construction would start, and what it might take to make that pedestrian friendly, if that's possible at all, and who might have to pay for that. So by taking that sentence out as a condition to the province, really, I think what we're doing is we're saying whoever wants to make that safe for pedestrians can put it in their budget and pay for it. If that's going to be the alternate way of getting there. But we don't impose that on any particular party who may or may not have it in their budget, particularly when the project contemplates the following year or within the following year having that portion of the spit taken out as well. So there's money that would be spent for a very short period of time. So I think that condition to me, or that portion of that condition, is we don't have to say we are including adequate parking and turnaround area because they already exist. And I think we want to make that very clear in our direction to the province. And that's the reason for the amendment.
I'm going to not support the amendment. I think that we've been working in good faith through the Vision Committee and with the SERP team, wind sports, terminals, to find those short-term wins while we figure out long-term access to the island. And I think it is reasonable to ask for safe passage once we're outside the construction window, and that although I think we should probably capture in writing what is going to happen within the SERP project to enable the access and parking, I don't agree with taking it out. I don't think anyone's wants to spend $1 million, but I think we do want to secure short-term access as we've been working very hard on the Vision Committee to do, recognizing the setback for wind sports here while trying to honor this very important project. So I don't see how taking this clause out actually helps or reduces confusion. All right, Councillor Herford and then Councillor Pengill.
Thank you. I won't be supporting the motion. I think the motion as it stands, leaving the details to be determined at detailed design phase, leaves it open enough to that the outcome will be to more protect the turnaround area and the parking that exists, and not to have it eaten up by the project's staging of or other works. So, and I do think that the interim access, or the next phase of access to the wind sports area, is is of the utmost importance. So I don't think that this puts an onus on any one party, but it highlights the challenge and the need is real. So I won't be supporting the removal of that portion. Thank you.
Any other comments on the amendment? I'll call the question. Any opposed? Mayor Elliott, Councilor Herford, Councilor Pettengill, Councilor French opposed. Motion fails. So back to the main motion as proposed by Councilor Anderson. Any further comments? Councilor Pettengill.
Yeah, I'd like to propose another amendment and that the word, the conditions outlined below be changed to the preferences outlined below. If it's seconded, I'll speak to it.
Is there a seconder on this amendment? Councilor Ray seconds for conversation. Go ahead, Councilor Pettengill.
Yeah, I would have actually preferred the staff recommendation. May have made a similar amendment. But in any case, I just watching the discussions and I do believe we've had updates from staff and delegated as is our normal procedure to work with the various team members on this project. So I feel that council has been in the loop on this all the way along. And I've seen there's a lot of challenges and trade-offs here. And I've seen a very productive relationship with us collaborating. And I worry about asking the province to set conditions does set us back. I appreciate the conversations with Squamish Nation staff and others show that collaboration continues. But I just feel that in terms of the outcomes we are looking for me, that small but subtle shift makes the desired outcomes more likely. And so I think that small word change is useful for that reason.
Any further comments on the amendment? Councilor Herford.
In the graphic that was outlined by staff that showed what looked like a web form to fill out, that nuance didn't seem to be available to us. So I'm not supportive of the motion this time unless I hear.
There's a point of clarification. Go ahead, Mr. Wickham.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. Just to clarify, the first part of the motion that includes the word condition is actually the checkbox. So we can't change that. We could change the wording of, say, we could check that checkbox and then say something about conditions instead of, or preferences instead of conditions in the text underneath, but we can't change what the text box says.
Do you wish to withdraw your amendment?
Or just if I might adjust it to align with that option of clarifying in the text if condition is what the checkbox requires.
So you have to restate your motion and then get your seconder to agree to it.
Okay. I guess subject to the preferences outlined below, but submitted as a condition as per the requirements of the FLNRORD form.
I'm not sure that's clear enough, Councilor Pettengill. I think the line has to say no objection approval of project subject to the conditions outlined below. And I think you would need to add a bullet point there that outlines your wording that you're seeking. But that first line has to stand. That's what's on the form for FLNRO as a technicality. That's why it's in quotes.
Okay. So I would then withdraw that suggestion and the motion would be that our text response clarify that these are our preferences. as an additional bullet to the resolution.
That is seconded by Councillor Race. Any further comments on this amendment? Councillor French.
I won't be supporting the amendment. I think conditions is the word that we want and need in this situation.
Councillor Herford.
Thank you. I also won't be supporting. I think that the conditions that we're discussing here I think should be our community should expect just that. So I'm happy to keep them as conditions.
Seeing no further hands, I'll call the question on the amendment. Any opposed? Mayor Elliott, Councillor French, Councillor Herford, opposed, motion fails. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand on the screen. Well, your video's not on, that's why, Councillor Anderson. Motion fails. He does count. His motion is still on the floor. So the original motion, without any amendments, is now on the floor. Councillor Henderson, do you wish to speak to your motion again?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I wish to reflect a little bit more generally. We have before us a large and rare and interesting package of information on an important topic for all of us, the health of the estuary. However, there's some, for me, I'll just touch on three aspects of this package of information that concern me. There is still some description on the part of Fisheries and Oceans Canada of this facility as an abandoned industrial facility, which it is certainly not. Although we can continue to, we don't know whether we continue to need this breakwater on the Fort Squamish terminals. We're addressing this, and in our hearts, we hope that we don't, and we can find some other solutions. But that description is inaccurate and misleading. The facility was built for the west side of the current Cattermole lease, which is currently the Squamish terminals. I don't need to go into detail on that, but moving on to a couple of observations in the SNC Levelland report from 2020. It speculates that the current morphology of the Squamish River Delta, with this strong current coming down the west side, is the responsibility of the training berm, and that's not true. The province in 1943 dug a great big trench to draw water from the middle branch to the west branch. And you can see in aerial photos over time how that happened. And so they straightened out the river, and that was something that the local people of Squamish asked for because of the 1940 huge flood downtown. So the province stepped in and dug a trench, and that's how we got the West Channel as it is today. So what my observation here is, why does the SNC Levelland talented engineers don't have the kind of contact network, or it bothers me that that context is missing for them, that they make these assumptions. Another aspect of the SNC Levelland report is their identification of all of the projects that are being done as a result of the estuary planning process, but their projects are rather selective. There are a number of diverse recommendations, projects, and action items, considerations in the estuary planning, came out of the estuary planning process that are not addressed at all. So in summary, I regret this whole package does not deliver a context for estuary management, management issues, management stakeholders, who they are. They're broader than what are identified. Diverse recommendations and considerations set out in the 1999 Squamish Estuary Management Plan. No reference to them. In fact, the SEMP doesn't even appear anywhere in the report at all. None of them. So there's no context also about how we physically got here with the conditions that we have in the wildlife management general area. And I have to reflect on this. I've been involved with the estuary since my family was involved with the estuary when the coal port protests took place in 1972-73. And so I regret that we do not have a dialogue platform in this community to produce better information than what we have here, fuller information and the full context of what we're up to here and who's involved and what's at stake. This is part of my concern leading to my resolution wanting to be extra sure that we're looking after all of our key stakeholders and, importantly, Squamish terminals. Thank you.
Any further comments on the motion? I actually am not going to support this motion. I find the second bullet point language to be a little bit vague. Of course, we don't want any deleterious impacts, but also the province isn't the one that will make that decision, and neither will we. It's really up to Transport Canada and the Piloting Association. And so I believe that's up for the terminals to describe in their referral, which we know from staff they're getting on the Water Sustainability Act. And yes, they're very important. And I know that's why we have them at the table on the Vision Committee. And we are sitting on the technical committee with them. So I know we're looking out for their interests, but I find this language a little bit vague. And I think that sort of outside of our jurisdiction. Councilor Pettengill.
Yeah, sorry. Been struggling with which way to go on this. I think I'm not able to support this resolution. I spoke a little bit to the preference, to use the word preference rather than condition. And I think, we are not the authority on this project. I think it is important for us to clearly articulate the community's concerns and so on. But I think since we are not the authority, since we are trying to work very collaboratively on reconciliation, I feel that the language of condition does not serve us in or wind sports or the terminals in getting the outcome we would like. I think different language and a more collaborative language rather than asking the province to mandate conditions is more constructive. And I also agree that the terminals has a process through another level of government that addresses those concerns. So yes, I will not be supporting this, although I generally support the general direction of support of proceeding with this. Thank you.
Seeing no further hands, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Mayor Elliott, Councilor Race, Councilor Pettengill opposed. Motion fails. So I'd like to move the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Pettengill. So I think people have spoken, and so we've tested the alternative. The staff recommendation is before us. Councilor Race.
Yeah, I haven't spoken on the main motion, and I'm not going to support this because I think the only position I'm happy with is responding to Flynn Road with the statement that we do not expect compensation, and everything else I think is just gratuitous, and we don't have to outline conditions. We don't have to state that we are no objection to approval of the project. And I don't think we have to take that position as a district. We have a lot of stakeholders with a lot of different interests, and I don't want to get on one side or the other of that particular issue. So I'd be happy to advise the province that we do not expect compensation, but that's all I would want to advise the province. So I will oppose this motion.
The compensation piece is within the referral on the licensing file, but not the Water Sustainability Act, Councilor Race. But so we're just voting on the motion with regard to the WSA. So I just want to make sure that was clear. There are two separate issues, and I've separated the vote on those. Councilor Herford.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the motion. I think, as I've stated previously, that this is a serious issue for our community and continued access. Even as we're requesting here, I think the community would expect more. So I think this is a reasonable ask, and I don't think places an onerous bar sort of on the project as a whole. So I'll be supporting.
Any other comments? Councillor Pangill.
Yeah, notwithstanding my last comments, it's taken some twists and turns I hadn't quite expected on these amendments and so on. And I still have the same concern about the language, but an even worse outcome would be that we not support this at all. And so despite my discomfort with some of the language, given the way the discussion and votes have gone thus far, I am inclined to support this.
I'm going to support this motion. I think that with the knowledge that the terminals have received their WCA referral, with the knowledge that we are sitting at the technical table, that there's peer review going on of those studies from this project, and that Transport Canada is a higher authority that will have far more weight than any condition we put in a letter on the Water Sustainability Act, that I am comfortable seeing this move forward with a staff recommendation. I will call the question. Any opposed? Councillor Race opposes. Motion carries. So now we need to just vote on the letter with regard to the license. That is the last, and that council authorize the corporate officer to execute the letter to Flynn Road significantly in the form attached to the report from the engineering department. So are people comfortable with that letter as it's in our package? Does someone want to move that? I'll move it. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any comments? Councillor Pangill.
To sort of repeat my comments, and for all the reasons I've already said, I will support this despite some reservations about the language.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Councillor Race opposes. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Wickham. Council, motion to close. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Anderson. Any opposed? Motion carries.